And now to dive a little deeper into this story, we are joined by Oakland University Professor of Political Science, David Dulio. Thank you for being here with us.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So there's so many things politically lately that have just seemed completely unprecedented. What do you make of this, and how could this possibly change the landscape of the election?
Well, this is just one of those to add to the list of unprecedented elements of an already exciting, frustrating, nerve-wracking, maybe 2024 presidential cycle. And, you know, I think the biggest and most immediate political fallout from this is, just as Governor DeSantis said in that opening, this is going to consolidate Trump's support. He's going to look like the figure who's being persecuted, right? He's going to call this a political persecution. He's going to call this a politicized effort. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. But that's why the courts are there, right, to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah, so Trump's going to appeal. His team has already said he's going to. Kind of a two-part question. Is there any chance that the Supreme Court doesn't even want to touch it? They just send it right back and uphold it? And if they do decide to hear it, is it a foregone conclusion that they're going to rule in favor of the former president?
Well, I think, I would say a couple things. One, the criticism, not that it really matters, but the criticism of this decision in the last 24 hours or so since it's come down has been pretty wide-ranging. Certainly nobody on the left is saying that it's a bad decision, but even Trump's critics are calling it a bad decision. Critics from the right and critics from within the Republican Party, which he has many, right? I doubt very highly that the Supreme Court would not take this case. They are the last. They are the court of last resort, the highest court in the land. People are going to look to them to make this decision once and for all. At least in part because, you know, this is the Colorado case. There's one in Michigan. There's one in a number of other states. So we need a final decision on this, and that can only come from the Supreme Court.
The fact that we keep seeing all of this fallout across the country, what does this say about this?
This goes back not just about Trump either. This goes back years and years and years, maybe decades even, where we've been building toward this point that is just so full of rancor, so full of bitterness and finger pointing, and almost, you know, you could say one-upspersonship, if that's a phrase, right? Where, you know, and we're seeing that on Capitol Hill now. Trump was impeached in his term. Well, now congressional Republicans are looking to, they're going down this road of an impeachment inquiry with President Biden. Well, you impeached our guy, we're going to impeach your guy. And that's bad for institutions, that's bad for our politics, and I think it's bad for our democracy.
Sure. There are so many questions involved here. Whether Section 3 of the 14th Amendment does indeed apply to presidents, whether the president did engage in insurrection, although President Biden said today there's no question about that. And then there's the question of who should make this call about ballots. Is it the courts or is it the people? Which one of those questions is the most important going forward?
Well, I think that depends on when we're at in the process, right? I think the historical questions about the 14th Amendment, which dates to 1868, right? So we're talking just after the Civil War, when that was really the context in which that was ratified. And as you note, right, does it apply to presidents? Well, that will be a question of the attorneys before the courts across the country, and certainly to the Supreme Court. I think we can probably read some tea leaves just based on previous decisions, how certain justices may interpret that. And that's really the key word, right, is interpret. That's what these judges are going to have to do. Supreme Court judges for sure, but in those lower courts as well. And then I think depending on the decision, then we get to the question of, okay, is it really appropriate to kick somebody off the ballot when there are reasonable questions about the applicability of this particular clause in the Constitution. And with all due respect to President Biden, it's not up to him whether or not President Trump committed insurrection, right? That's going to get ironed out, again, in the courts.
We are short on time, but I do want to wrap up with one final question. You know, the Supreme Court is supposed to be making decisions without fear or favor to anyone or of anyone. Particularly in recent months, the partisanship, the partisan nature of the court has been in question. Do you think that we can trust, that the American people can trust that these justices are making calls without fear of anyone or favor to anyone?
I think we can be confident in that, right? And this is not the first time that the judges on the Supreme Court have heard those types of criticisms, right? They have just in the past been able to beat them back a little bit more. I think the questions of legitimacy of the Supreme, and let's face it, right? Whichever side comes out on top here are going to bring those same calls of legitimacy of the court and to the points you make. They're going to bring them back to the fore, right? And we need our institutions to be strong to be able to withstand those attacks.
Yeah. Oh, so much to cover as 2024 starts to heat up. Oakland University professor of political science, David Dulio. Thanks so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me.
And we'll be right back.